The name she couldn't hide. The sharp buzz of her alarm cut through the quiet apartment at 6 a.m., but Mira Collins was already awake. She had been awake for hours. Not because of nerves about her first day at one of the most powerful tech firms in the city. Not because of the presentation she had rehearsed until midnight. Not even because this job was her one chance to lift her family out of years of struggle. No, she was awake because of what was written on her skin. Her hand trembled as she lifted it to her collarbone again, as if touching it for the 100th time might somehow erase it. It didn't. The ink was still there. Dark. Permanent. Unmistakable. Adrian Keller. Her new boss's name. Tattooed across the upper curve of her chest. "Please be a nightmare," she whispered to the empty room. "Please, please be a nightmare." But the faint sting under her skin told the truth. Last night had been real. And today, she had to face him. The night before had started as a celebration. Mira had never been the type to party. She worked 2 jobs through college, graduated top of her class, and spent years clawing her way into rooms where people like her weren't expected to succeed. But this job offer changed everything. Senior Operations Analyst at Keller Dynamics, a global powerhouse known for innovation, ruthless leadership, and impossibly high standards. And for one man, Adrian Keller, the youngest CEO in the company's history. Brilliant, private, feared, admired, untouchable. No interviews, no scandals, no social media, almost no photographs. A ghost who ran an empire. Her friends insisted she celebrate. Just one night, they said. One night became tequila shots. Tequila shots became dares. And dares became a tiny neon-lit tattoo parlor that should have been closed. "Come on," her friend Lila had laughed. "If you're going to work for the most mysterious billionaire alive, you need a story." Mira had rolled her eyes. "I don't need a story. I need this job." Then make the universe notice you. Someone mentioned Adrian Keller's name. Someone else joked about destiny. Someone dared her. "If fate is real," Lila slurred, "tattoo his name. If you meet him someday, it'll be legendary." Mira remembered laughing. Loud. Careless. Free in a way she never allowed herself to be. "Fine," she had said, sliding into the chair. "If I'm going to work for the man, I might as well commit." She expected something small. Temporary looking. Hidden. But drunk decisions and artistic enthusiasm were a dangerous combination. By the time she stumbled home, she barely remembered it. Until morning. Until the mirror. Until the panic. Back in the present, Mira paced her bedroom like a trapped animal. "Okay," she muttered. "Okay. Solutions. High-neck blouse? Still visible. Scarf? Suspicious in summer heat. Bandage? Worse. Makeup?" She tried. 3 layers later, it looked like a smudged bruise with letters still glaring through. Her phone buzzed. "Lila, tell me you didn't actually do it." Mira closed her eyes. "Mira, I did it." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Lila, oh my God. Send pic." Mira hesitated, then snapped a photo and hit send. 5 seconds later, her phone rang. "You absolute maniac," Lila screamed through the speaker. "That's not small. That's not subtle. That's practically a billboard." "I know. You start work today." "I know. You're going to meet him." Mira slid down against the wall, pressing her forehead to her knees. "I know." Silence. Then softer, okay, listen. Maybe he won't notice." Mira let out a hollow laugh. "It's literally his name. Maybe he's oblivious? He runs a multinational corporation. Maybe he'll think it's someone else named Adrian Keller. How many do you think there are?" "Good point." Another pause. "Okay," Lila said carefully. "Worst case scenario, you just tell the truth." Mira groaned. "The truth is I got drunk and branded myself with my boss's name like a lovesick teenager." "When you say it like that, it sounds bad." "It is bad." "Or," Lila added, voice brightening, "maybe this is destiny." "Stop." "Maybe you two fall madly in love." "Stop." "And someday this becomes a romantic story you tell your grandchildren." "Lila." Okay. I'm stopping." Mira hung up and stared at the ceiling. Destiny. Right. More like disaster. By the time she arrived at Keller Dynamics headquarters, her stomach had tied itself into knots. The building towered over the city like a monument to ambition. All glass, steel, and quiet intimidation. People in sharp suits moved with purpose through the lobby. Mira felt like an imposter. A girl from a small apartment, raised by a single mother who worked night shifts, standing in a place where one mistake could end everything. She straightened her posture. You earned this. Don't let one stupid night ruin it. The receptionist smiled professionally. Name? Mira Collins. New hire. A badge was printed. A polite welcome packet handed over. Everything felt normal. Until she stepped into the elevator. Two women in expensive suits stood inside. Their conversation stopped the moment Mira entered. Their eyes flicked to her chest. Then to each other. Then back again. One raised an eyebrow. The other smirked. Heat flooded Mira's face. They saw it. Of course they saw it. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. When the doors opened, they exited without a word, but Mira heard one whisper behind her. Unbelievable. Her hands clenched. First day and already judged. Orientation was a blur of presentations, policies, and introductions she barely absorbed. All she could think about was one line mentioned at the end. This afternoon, Mr. Keller will personally greet the new analysts. Her pulse thundered. No. No, no, no. She needed more time. Laser removal. A miracle. A time machine. Anything. But time, as always, refused to cooperate. At exactly 2 p.m., the conference room doors opened. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Not louder. Quieter. Charged. Mira didn't need to look to know he had entered. But she did anyway. And forgot how to breathe. Adrian Keller was not just handsome. He was commanding. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that looked tailored to perfection. Dark hair swept back. Sharp features softened only by calm, unreadable eyes that seemed to miss nothing. He didn't radiate arrogance. He radiated control. The kind that made people straighten unconsciously. He spoke briefly, welcoming them, outlining expectations, thanking them for joining the company. His voice was deep, steady, measured. Professional. Untouchable. Then he stepped down from the front and began greeting each person individually. Handshake. Name. Short exchange. Efficient. Polite. Distant. Mira's heart slammed harder with every step he took closer. 2 people away. 1. Then he was in front of her. Up close, he was even more overwhelming. Mr. Keller, she managed, standing. His gaze met hers. For a split second, something flickered there. Not recognition. Curiosity. Mira Collins, he said, glancing briefly at the tablet in his hand. Then his eyes returned to her face. Warm. Assessing. He extended his hand. She took it. His grip was firm, steady, grounding. Welcome to Keller Dynamics, Miss Collins. Thank you, sir. Professional. Normal. Safe. Then his eyes dropped. To her collarbone. To the ink. Everything stopped. His hand stilled around hers. Silence expanded like a shockwave. Slowly, very slowly, he looked back up at her. His expression had changed. Not angry. Not amused. Something far more dangerous. Intrigued. That, he said quietly, is my name. Mira's throat went dry. I can explain. He held her gaze for several long seconds. The room seemed to fade away. Then, unexpectedly, one corner of his mouth lifted. Not a smile. Something sharper. I look forward to hearing that explanation, Miss Collins. He released her hand, turned, and walked away, leaving her standing there, pulse racing, skin burning, mind spinning. Because in that moment, Mira Collins realized something terrifying. She hadn't just embarrassed herself. She had captured the full attention of one of the most powerful men in the room. And somehow, that might be even more dangerous. The assignment no one wanted. Mira didn't remember leaving the conference room. She didn't remember walking back to her desk, sitting down, or opening her laptop. All she could hear was his voice. That is my name. Not loud. Not accusatory. Worse, calm. Controlled. Interested. Her coworker, a nervous-looking man named Daniel, leaned toward her and whispered, Are you okay? Mira blinked. What? You look like you just saw a ghost. I might have. Daniel followed her gaze to the front of the room, where Adrian Keller was speaking to the senior team. Then his eyes dropped. To her collarbone. His eyebrows shot up so high they nearly disappeared into his hairline. Oh, he mouthed silently. Mira wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Word spread fast. Too fast. By mid-afternoon, the glances had changed. They weren't just curious anymore. They were judgmental. Mocking. Suspicious. She heard whispers every time she passed someone. Is that real? Who does that? Attention seeker. Trying to sleep her way up? Her hands curled into fists. Years of working twice as hard to be taken seriously, and one reckless mistake had erased it all. She forced herself to focus on her work. Data analysis. Supply projections. Performance models. Numbers didn't judge. Numbers didn't gossip. Numbers didn't care what was on her skin. At 4:30 p.m., her phone buzzed with an internal message. Executive office. Ms. Collins, please report to the 28th floor. Her stomach dropped. The executive floor. His floor. Daniel glanced over. You in trouble already? I don't know. But she did. She absolutely did. The elevator ride up felt like ascending toward judgment. The 28th floor was nothing like the rest of the building. Quiet. Spacious. Minimalist elegance. Everything looked expensive without trying to look expensive. A woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes sat behind a sleek desk. She studied Mira for exactly 2 seconds before her gaze dropped to the tattoo. Something like understanding, not surprise, flickered across her face. Mr. Keller is expecting you, she said, gesturing toward a large glass door. Go right in. No warmth. No hostility. Just efficiency. Mira knocked lightly. Come in. His voice carried through the door, steady, controlled, impossible to read. She stepped inside. And froze. Adrian Keller stood by the window, city skyline stretching behind him like a painting. Without the conference room crowd, his presence felt even stronger. More personal. More dangerous. He turned slowly. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Deliberate. Miss Collins. Sir. He gestured toward the chair opposite his desk. Sit. She did, hands clasped tightly in her lap. He remained standing for a moment, studying her in silence. Then he walked around the desk and sat across from her. Not hiding behind paperwork. Not pretending this was routine. Direct. Focused. On her. I assume, he began calmly, you do not make a habit of tattooing the names of corporate executives on your body. Her cheeks burned. No, sir. Good. Silence stretched. She swallowed. I can explain. I'm listening. Her mind scrambled. The truth sounded ridiculous. But lies would be worse. It was a celebration, she said carefully. I had just received the job offer. My friends took me out. We drank too much. Someone mentioned your name. Someone else joked about destiny. I made a stupid decision. His expression didn't change. So this was not an attempt to impress me. No. Not a publicity stunt. No. Not a strategic career move. Absolutely not. For the first time, something like amusement flickered in his eyes. Then what was it? She exhaled shakily. Proof that even responsible people can do something incredibly irresponsible. Silence. Then, a soft huff of laughter. Not mocking. Genuine. Unexpected. Well, he said, leaning back slightly, that is refreshingly honest. Mira blinked. He wasn't angry. He wasn't threatening her job. If anything, he seemed entertained. That said, he continued, you have created a situation. Her heart sank. I understand if this reflects badly on the company. I can keep it covered. I can. That won't be necessary. She stopped mid-sentence. Sir? He folded his hands on the desk. In fact, he said slowly, I have a proposal. That word sent a chill down her spine. A proposal? Yes. He leaned forward slightly, eyes locking onto hers. Tonight, I am attending a private industry event. Investors, partners, media figures. Normally, I would bring one of the senior directors. He paused. But circumstances have changed. Her pulse quickened. I need someone intelligent, capable, and familiar with operational strategy, he continued. Someone who can speak confidently if addressed. That sounds like a senior manager, she said cautiously. It is. Silence. Then realization hit. You want me to go? I do. Her brain short-circuited. Sir, I'm a new hire. I'm not qualified for. You were hired because you are qualified. That's not what I meant. I know. His gaze flicked briefly to her collarbone. And there is another advantage. Her stomach twisted. What advantage? His voice lowered slightly. No one will question why you are at my side. Heat rushed to her face. Because of the tattoo. Because it looked like devotion. Possession. Obsession. Sir, people already think. People will think whatever they choose, he said calmly. What matters is whether you let them control you. The words hit harder than she expected. He wasn't mocking her. He was challenging her. I don't want special treatment, she said quietly. This is not special treatment. Then what is it? A long pause. Then simply, an opportunity. She stared at him. Opportunity. Or test. or damage control, or something else entirely. And if I refuse? She asked before she could stop herself. Something dangerous flashed behind his calm exterior. You won't. Her pulse skipped. Not arrogance. Certainty. Because he was right. If she said no, rumors would get worse. Her credibility would shrink. Her future here might collapse before it even began. She said yes. At least she would control the narrative. Dress code? She asked quietly. A faint smile touched his lips. Elegant. Not formal. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. Be ready at 7:30. My driver will pick you up. She rose automatically. Mr. Keller? Yes. Why me, really? For the first time he hesitated. Just a fraction. Then he said something that made her breath catch. Because, Miss Collins, you did something most people here never would. What's that? You took a risk. Their eyes met. And I value people who are brave enough to do that. Mira left the executive floor in a daze. By the time she reached the street outside the building, her hands were shaking. Dinner with the CEO. At an elite event. On her first day. While wearing his name on her skin. Lila answered on the first ring. How did it go? Mira leaned against a lamppost. He wants me to go to a high-profile event with him tonight. Silence. Then. What? As his professional companion. Professional? Lila repeated slowly. Sure. Totally professional. Lila. Okay. I'm serious. This is huge. I think it's damage control. I think he's fascinated. Mira closed her eyes. He said I took a risk. Girl, you didn't take a risk. You detonated a grenade. Despite herself, Mira laughed. For the first time all day. Do you have anything elegant? She asked. Come over, Lila said immediately. We're making you unforgettable. 2 hours later, Mira stood in front of Lila's mirror wearing a midnight blue dress that fit like it had been made for her. Simple. Sophisticated. Striking without trying too hard. And worst of all, it framed the tattoo perfectly. I could still cover it, Mira muttered. Lila shook her head firmly. No. Own it. I don't want to look obsessed. You don't. You look powerful. Mira studied her reflection. For the first time she didn't see a mistake. She saw a woman standing at the edge of something life-changing. Terrifying. But powerful. Her phone buzzed. Driver has arrived. Her stomach flipped. Lila squeezed her shoulders. Go show them who you really are. Outside, a sleek black car waited. The driver opened the door respectfully. Miss Collins. Inside, the city lights streaked past as they headed toward the event. Mira pressed her palm to her chest, feeling her heartbeat beneath the ink. She had no idea what tonight would bring. Only that everything was about to change. Because she wasn't just attending an event. She was stepping into a world where every move mattered. Every word mattered. And every person would be watching. Especially him. The night that changed everything. The car slowed as it approached the entrance of the Grand Meridian Hotel, its towering glass facade glowing gold against the evening sky. Mira's breath caught. Luxury cars lined the curb. Cameras flashed. Elegant guests in couture gowns and tailored suits moved like they belonged to a different world, one of wealth, influence, and power. Her world, until today, had never intersected with theirs. The driver stepped out and opened her door. Miss Collins. She nodded, forcing her legs to move. The moment her heels touched the pavement, she felt it, the shift in attention. Eyes turned. Not just because she was beautiful. Because she arrived alone. Because she carried herself like she belonged, even though her heart was racing hard enough to shake her ribs. Because the name on her skin was visible beneath the soft glow of the lights. Whispers started almost instantly. She pretended not to hear them. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers. Marble floors. Soft orchestral music. Conversations humming beneath the surface like electricity. A discreet sign read, Keller Dynamics, Private Investors Reception. Her stomach flipped. He was hosting this. Which meant all of this. All of these people. Answered to him. A staff member approached her immediately. Miss Collins? Mr. Keller is expecting you. Of course he was. She followed the woman through the crowd, every step feeling heavier than the last. Until she saw him. Adrian Keller stood near the center of the room, surrounded by executives and investors. Even among powerful people, he stood out effortlessly, calm, composed, commanding without raising his voice. He wore a black suit tonight, perfectly tailored, crisp white shirt open at the collar, formal without being stiff. But what struck her most wasn't how handsome he was. It was how tired he looked. Not physically. Emotionally. Like carrying the weight of too many responsibilities for too long. Then he looked up. And saw her. Everything else disappeared. His expression didn't change dramatically. But something shifted in his eyes. Recognition. Surprise. Something deeper, warmer. He excused himself mid-conversation and walked straight toward her. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Certain. Every head turned as he approached. Because when Adrian Keller moved, people noticed. He stopped in front of her. For a moment, neither spoke. His gaze traveled, not inappropriately, not possessively, simply taking her in. Then it stopped at her collarbone. At his name. A quiet breath left him. You came. I said I would. His eyes lifted to hers again. Yes, he said softly. You did. Something about the way he said it made her chest tighten. He offered his arm. Not as a command. As an invitation. She hesitated only a second before taking it. His sleeve was warm beneath her fingers. Solid. Real. Grounding. He guided her into the crowd, introducing her with effortless confidence. This is Ms. Mira Collins, one of our newest analysts. Not assistant. Not companion. Not anything that diminished her. Just her title. Respectful. Professional. People's reactions shifted immediately. Curiosity replaced skepticism. Interest replaced dismissal. She answered questions. Discussed logistic strategies. Offered insights she hadn't even realized she was brave enough to share. And Adrian listened. Not hovering. Not interrupting. Watching with quiet approval. As if he had expected this all along. Eventually, they stepped aside near a balcony overlooking the city. Cool night air replaced the warmth of the ballroom. Mira exhaled, tension easing from her shoulders. You're doing well, he said. She glanced at him. I feel like I'm improvising my way through a disaster. You're not. You don't think they're judging me? His jaw tightened slightly. Anyone judging you isn't worth your attention. Easy for him to say. He had built this world. She was still trying to survive in it. Silence fell, not awkward, just heavy with unspoken thoughts. Finally, she asked the question that had been burning inside her all evening. Why didn't you fire me? His eyes shifted to her immediately. Why would I? Because I embarrassed the company. Because I embarrassed you. Because everyone thinks I'm ridiculous. He studied her for a long moment. Then said quietly, I don't think you're ridiculous. Her throat tightened. You don't? No. He stepped closer to the balcony railing, looking out at the city lights. I think you made a mistake. She waited. And I think you showed up anyway. Something cracked open in her chest. You could have hidden, he continued. You could have resigned. You could have run. He turned back to her. But you didn't. His voice softened. That takes courage. No one had ever described her that way before. Responsible. Hardworking. Reliable. Yes. Courageous? Never. Footsteps approached behind them. A group of elegantly dressed women stepped onto the balcony, their laughter sharp and deliberate. One of them, tall, perfectly styled, radiating confidence, looked directly at Mira. And smirked. Well, she said sweetly, that explains the rumors. Mira's stomach dropped. Adrian's posture stiffened. The woman's eyes flicked to the tattoo. How dedicated. The other women giggled. Mira's fingers tightened around the railing. Old memories surfaced. School bullies, snide comments, being underestimated because she wasn't born into wealth. She had worked too hard to let strangers tear her down now. Before she could respond, Adrian spoke. Is there something you'd like to say directly? His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Authority wrapped around every word. The woman faltered slightly but recovered with a tight smile. I was simply admiring her enthusiasm. Adrian stepped forward, not aggressively but with unmistakable presence. Then admire it quietly. The temperature on the balcony seemed to drop. The women exchanged uneasy glances. One cleared her throat. We didn't mean to intrude. They retreated quickly, laughter gone. Mira stared at him. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Why? His expression softened just a fraction. Because no one gets to disrespect someone under my protection. Her breath caught. Protection. Not ownership. Not control. Protection. Felt different, safer, and far more dangerous to her heart. Music shifted inside the ballroom, slower, softer. A dance began. He looked toward the doors, then back at her. May I? She blinked. Dance? Yes. Her instinct screamed to refuse. This was too personal, too intimate, too risky. But something deeper, something brave, pushed her forward. Okay. The ballroom floor shimmered under the lights as couples moved gracefully to the music. Adrian's hand settled at her waist, warm and steady. Her hand rested in his. Their other hands clasped lightly. Professional. Appropriate. Except nothing about it felt professional. His presence was overwhelming up close, not in a threatening way but in a grounding, consuming one. He guided her effortlessly, anticipating every movement. You're a good dancer, she said. I learned young. My grandmother insisted. She smiled faintly. She sounds formidable. She is. Pause. She would like you. Mira nearly missed a step. Why? Because you don't pretend. Their eyes met. The rest of the room faded into background noise. Most people around me, he continued quietly, are very careful about what they show. And I'm not. You are honest. Her voice dropped. Even when honesty makes things worse? Especially then. The song slowed further, drawing them closer. Close enough to hear each other breathe. Close enough to feel the steady rhythm of his heartbeat through the space between them. Close enough to realize something neither of them wanted to admit. This wasn't just professional anymore. This wasn't just damage control. This was becoming personal. Dangerously personal. When the music ended, neither moved right away. Then reality returned all at once. The crowd, the lights, the expectations. He stepped back first. Composed again. Controlled. Thank you, he said. For what? For trusting me. She didn't know how to respond to that. Because the truth was, she wasn't sure she trusted him. But she did feel safe with him. And that might be even more terrifying. As the evening wound down, he walked her back toward the entrance. No grand gestures. No unnecessary closeness. Just quiet companionship. Outside, the night air felt cooler, calmer. The car door opened. She paused before getting in. Mr. Keller? Yes. Why did you really bring me tonight? He considered the question. Long enough that she thought he might avoid it. Then he said something that made her heart stumble. Because I wanted to see who you really are. And? A faint, genuine smile appeared. I'm glad you came. As the car pulled away, Mira watched him in the rear window, standing alone under the hotel lights, hands in his pockets, looking less like a powerful CO and more like a man carrying too much on his own. Her hand rose unconsciously to the tattoo. What had started as a reckless mistake was turning into something far more complicated. Because now the entire city had seen her at his side. And tomorrow, everyone would be talking. The truth they tried to bury. By morning, the entire company knew. Mira realized it the moment she stepped into the lobby. Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Phones were subtly lowered as if people had just been pretending not to record her. The whispers weren't quiet anymore. They were deliberate. Calculated. Cruel. She's the one. The tattoo girl. Did you see the photos? She was on his arm all night. Mira's chest tightened. Photos? Her stomach dropped as she pulled out her phone. Notifications flooded the screen. Messages from Lila. From unknown numbers. From coworkers she barely knew. She opened the first link. A gossip site. Front page. Mystery woman with CO. Obsession or strategy? And there she was. Clear photos. Her face. Her dress. His hand at her back. The tattoo unmistakable. Comments scrolled endlessly below. Gold digger. Desperate. Attention seeker. Probably slept her way into the job. Her vision blurred. Not because she believed them. Because she knew how quickly reputations could be destroyed by lies. The elevator ride felt suffocating. Two men stepped in behind her, clearly unaware she could hear them. Smart move though. What? Branding yourself with the boss's name. That's next-level networking. They laughed. Mira stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Years of working twice as hard, reduced to a punchline. When the doors opened on her floor, Daniel rushed toward her. You need to see this. I already have. No, he said quietly. This. He turned his tablet toward her. An internal forum post. Anonymous. Is Keller showing favoritism to new hire with questionable judgment? Replies piled beneath it. If she's willing to tattoo his name, what else is she willing to do? Embarrassing for the company. She should be fired. Something inside her cracked. Not anger. Not sadness. Exhaustion. She had done nothing wrong professionally. And yet she was being tried and convicted in the court of public opinion. At 10 a.m., another message arrived. Executive office. Mr. Keller would like to see you immediately. Her stomach dropped again. Not fear this time. Dread. Had the backlash become too much? Was this where it ended? The executive floor felt colder than before. Even the receptionist's expression was tense. She knocked. Come in. Mira stepped inside. Adrian stood behind his desk, sleeves rolled up, tie discarded. His hair was slightly disheveled, not styled, but as if he had been running his hands through it repeatedly. A tablet lay on the desk, screen glowing with the same article she had seen. His jaw was tight. Eyes darker than yesterday. You've seen it? Not a question. Yes. Silence. Heavy. Then he said quietly, I'm sorry. The words stunned her. You don't need to apologize. Yes, I do. He walked around the desk, stopping a few feet away. This happened because you were with me. No, she said softly. It happened because people wanted it to. Their eyes met. For the first time, she saw something raw beneath his composure. Guilt. Anger. Protectiveness. I've already had the legal team contact the sites, he said. False statements will be removed. And the internal rumors? His expression hardened. I'm handling those too. Before she could respond, the door burst open. A sharply dressed woman in her 40s strode in, tablet in hand, expression thunderous. Adrian, this has gone too far. Mira stiffened. Good morning to you too, Claire, he replied calmly. Claire didn't even look at Mira. We have investors calling. Board members demanding explanations. They think you're compromising leadership integrity. Adrian's voice cooled. And what do you think? I think this situation is damaging the company. Her gaze flicked to Mira, sharp, dismissive. With all due respect, Miss Collins should never have been brought to that event. The words landed like a slap. Mira straightened her shoulders. I can leave if my presence is a problem. No, Adrian said immediately. Claire raised an eyebrow. You're prioritizing her comfort over corporate stability? I'm prioritizing fairness. Claire's tone sharpened. Optics matter, Adrian. And so does truth. Silence crackled between them. Claire finally addressed Mira directly. Miss Collins, I'm sure you understand the position this puts us in. Mira met her gaze. I understand that I did my job. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly as if surprised by the backbone. But perception is not reality, Mira finished quietly. Adrian watched her, something like approval flickering in his eyes. Claire exhaled sharply. Regardless, the board will want reassurance. You'll have it, Adrian said. How? He didn't hesitate. By telling them the truth. Claire frowned. Which is? That Miss Collins was invited because she earned her position, not because of speculation or gossip. Claire studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Very well. She turned and left, heels clicking sharply against the floor. Silence returned. Mira's hands trembled slightly. That was intense. She means well, Adrian said dryly. In her own way. You didn't have to defend me. Yes, he said quietly. I did. She looked at him. Why? A long pause. Then. Because I know what it's like to be judged for things people don't understand. Something in his voice made her chest tighten. He wasn't talking about business. He was talking about himself. He moved closer, stopping at a respectful distance. I need to ask you something. Okay. Are you still willing to work here, after all this? The question caught her off guard. You think I'd quit? I wouldn't blame you. She shook her head slowly. No. His brows lifted slightly. Why not? Because I didn't fight this hard to get here just to walk away when things got uncomfortable. A faint smile touched his lips. That's what I thought. Her phone buzzed. A new alert. Another article. She almost ignored it, until she saw the headline. CEO responds to rumors, she earned her place. Mira looked up. You did an interview? Just now. Her eyes widened. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. But you rarely speak to media. Yes. Why break that now? He held her gaze. Because silence would have let them define the narrative. Her throat tightened. And I refuse to let anyone define you as something you're not. Emotion surged unexpectedly. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Just deep, overwhelming relief. Someone believed her. Someone powerful. Someone who didn't have to care, but did anyway. Thank you, she said softly. His expression softened too. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. Unfortunately, she said, voice barely steady, it doesn't always feel basic. For a moment, they simply stood there, Two people from completely different worlds, connected by circumstance neither had planned. Then he said something that changed everything again. The board wants to meet you. Her stomach dropped. Me? Yes. Why? They want to judge for themselves. Fear flickered. Not because she doubted her abilities. Because she knew what boards were like. Powerful people deciding someone's fate in a room she didn't belong to. When? Tomorrow morning. She inhaled slowly. Okay. He studied her carefully. You're not afraid? Of course I am. Then why say yes so quickly? She met his eyes. Because I'm tired of running from things that scare me. Something unspoken passed between them. Respect. Understanding. Connection. As she turned to leave, he spoke again. Mira. She paused. Yes. His voice was softer than she had ever heard it. Whatever happens tomorrow, you won't face it alone. Her chest tightened. Thank you. She stepped out of the office feeling different than when she entered. Still anxious. Still uncertain. But stronger. Because this wasn't just about a mistake anymore. It was about proving who she really was. Outside, the city buzzed with life as usual, indifferent to personal crises. Mira walked slowly, breathing in the cool air. Her hand rose to the tattoo, not in shame this time but in reflection. What had started as a reckless act had become a symbol of something else. Courage, consequences, and a connection she hadn't expected. Tomorrow, powerful people would decide whether she belonged in their world. But for the first time, she believed she might. The reveal that silenced everyone. Mira didn't sleep. Not because of fear alone, though that was certainly there, but because something deeper kept her awake. Today wasn't just about defending herself. It was about reclaiming everything she had worked for. Her future. Her dignity. Her voice. By the time dawn painted her apartment walls pale gold, she was already dressed. Not in something flashy or defensive, but in her most professional outfit. Clean lines. Neutral tones. Quiet confidence. She studied herself in the mirror. The tattoo was still there. Still bold. Still unavoidable. For the first time she didn't try to hide it. Let them see, she whispered. Because today she wasn't going to apologize for existing. The boardroom on the 30th floor felt like a courtroom. Long polished table. Floor-to-ceiling windows. 12 seats filled with people whose decisions moved billions of dollars. Mira stood at the doorway for one heartbeat, then stepped inside. Heads turned. Eyes sharpened. Assessments began instantly. Adrian was already there, seated at the far end, not at the center but close enough to signal authority without domination. When he saw her, his posture straightened slightly. Not dramatic, but unmistakably supportive. Miss Collins, one of the board members said. Please sit. Her chair felt heavier than any she had ever occupied. An older man with silver hair spoke first. Miss Collins, you are aware why you've been asked to attend? Yes. And you understand the reputational concerns currently affecting the company? I do. Good. He folded his hands. Then we'll be direct. Do you believe your actions reflect sound professional judgment? Mira inhaled slowly. Honesty. Always honesty. No, she said. Several eyebrows lifted. But, she continued calmly, my actions outside the workplace do not define my performance inside it. Silence. She pressed on. I made a personal mistake. I take responsibility for that. But I have never been late, unprepared, or unprofessional in my work. I earned my position through merit, not manipulation. A woman across the table leaned forward. Yet public perception suggests otherwise. With respect, Mira replied, voice steady, public perception is based on incomplete information. And what information is missing? She met each of their gazes one by one. That I grew up watching my mother work 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. That I studied under streetlights when our electricity was shut off. That I graduated top of my class while working nights. That this job is not a stepping stone, it's a lifeline. No one interrupted. No one looked away. She wasn't begging. She was telling the truth. I didn't come here to impress anyone, she continued. I came here to work. The silver-haired man nodded slowly. And the tattoo? Mira didn't flinch. It was a foolish decision made during a celebration. Nothing more. Pause. Then quietly. If I could undo it, I would. But since I can't, I've chosen to face the consequences instead of hiding. She glanced briefly at Adrian. And I appreciate that Mr. Keller allowed me the opportunity to do that. Adrian's expression remained composed, but his eyes held unmistakable pride. Another board member spoke. You were invited to a high-profile event on your first day. Why you? Mira hesitated. Because she didn't know. Before she could answer, Adrian spoke for the first time. Because I selected her. All eyes shifted to him. She demonstrated exceptional analytical insight during onboarding, he continued calmly. And I wanted a perspective not shaped by years of internal bias. Claire, seated halfway down the table, nodded slightly, confirming it. Not favoritism. Strategy. The tension in the room shifted. Skepticism gave way to interest. Respect began to replace suspicion. Then the silver-haired man leaned back. One final question, Miss Collins? Yes, sir. Why should we believe you belong here? Mira felt something inside her settle. No more fear. No more defensiveness. Just truth. Because I will work harder than anyone else in this room to make this company better, she said quietly. Not for recognition. Not for attention. But because I know what it means to have one chance, and refuse to waste it. Silence. Reflective. Then the man nodded. Thank you. They asked her to step outside while they deliberated. The hallway felt endless. Minutes stretched like hours. Mira stared out the window, heart pounding, palms damp. The door opened behind her. She turned. Adrian stood there. Alone. She searched his face for clues. Found none. What happened? She asked. Instead of answering immediately, he stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the tension finally easing from his shoulders. They were impressed. Her breath caught. Impressed. Yes. A faint smile appeared. They approved your continued employment. Relief crashed over her so suddenly her knees nearly gave out. Thank you. You don't need to thank me. But you. I didn't convince them, he said gently. You did. She laughed weakly, wiping at her eyes before the tears could fall. I thought I was going to faint in there. You didn't. I wanted to. But you didn't. Something warm settled between them. Not tension. Not awkwardness. Something steady. He hesitated, then spoke again. There's something else. Her stomach fluttered nervously. What? The board requested that you present at the quarterly strategy review. Her eyes widened. That's huge. It is. Why would they want that? Because, he said softly, they see what I see. Her heart skipped. And what's that? He held her gaze. Potential. They stood in silence for a moment, the city stretching endlessly behind them. Then she said something she hadn't expected to say. I'm glad this happened. He looked surprised. The tattoo? The rumors? The stress? Yes. Why? She touched her collarbone lightly. Because it forced me to stop trying to be invisible. His expression softened. You were never invisible. I felt like I had to be. Blend in. Work quietly. Don't draw attention. And now? She met his eyes, steady and unafraid. Now I know I can stand in the spotlight, and survive. A slow, genuine smile spread across his face. The kind that transformed him from intimidating CEO to something far more human. I'm glad too, he admitted. Her pulse fluttered. Why? He stepped back slightly, not distancing himself but giving her space. Because otherwise, he said quietly, I might never have noticed you. Her breath caught. They didn't move closer. They didn't say anything dramatic. They didn't need to. Because the moment wasn't about romance. It was about respect. Recognition. Two people who had seen each other clearly, and chosen not to look away. Later, as Mira walked out of the building into the afternoon sunlight, she felt lighter than she had in years. Not because everything was perfect. Not because the tattoo was gone. But because she had faced humiliation, judgment, and fear, and come out stronger. Her phone buzzed. Lila. So? Did you get fired or promoted? Mira smiled as she typed back. Neither. I proved I belong. She slipped the phone into her bag and kept walking, shoulders back, head high. People still stared. Some curious. Some impressed. Some resentful. But none of it mattered anymore. Because she knew something they didn't. Respect isn't given because you look perfect. It's earned because you stand tall when everything tries to knock you down. Behind her, high above the city, Adrian Keller watched from his office window. Not as a boss surveying an employee, but as a man witnessing someone extraordinary step into her own power. And for the first time in a very long time, he smiled without restraint.